Welcome everyone to the 9th of a series of MLA-funded More Beef from Pasture webinars. This is the last of this series, but keep an eye on your inbox as we hope to be running some more webinars soon. Just before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's webinar. You should see something like this that looks like this on your own computer desktop in the upper right hand corner. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You don't have to type your name as the technology links it to your question. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We'll collect these and address them at the end. With that in mind, could I ask everyone to write a short note in the questions box so we can be sure that you can hear us okay and that you know where it is? Oh great, I can see some people typing there. Thank you very much, it's good to know. Tonight's webinar is fully funded via the MLA More Beef from Pastures program. The aim of these webinars is to give you a taste of the type of information that is available through More Beef from Pastures. Much of the information is available in more detail in follow-up events where we aim to improve knowledge and skills and ultimately change practices for the better. You have the option in the post-webinar survey to indicate what follow-up events you may be interested in, so please let us know. The slide shows a screenshot of the More Beef from Pastures online manual. This manual consists of 7 modules, each of which is highlighted in the banner at the top of the screen. Tonight's webinar fits in with the meeting market specifications model. Thanks for providing us with some production information when you registered for this webinar. At the end of this webinar, there will be a brief survey appear on your computer automatically. It should only take 2 or 3 minutes to complete, and we consider this information very important and ask that you stay online to complete them before you rush off. The feedback is integral to the ongoing success of the More Beef from Pastures program. MLA uses the information to determine the success of the events, what information is important to you producers, and how best to deliver it. With that, I'd like to introduce Alison McIntosh, and now Alison Hamilton, nee McIntosh, and she's a principal of AJM Livestock Solutions. She's been involved in the cattle industry all of her life, and Alison has a first-hand understanding of the industry and has spent 3 years as the National Livestock Identification System Extension and Technical Support Officer for New South Wales. Prior to this, Alison worked for Meat and Livestock Australia in the Research and Development team. AJM Livestock Solutions has been in business for over 5 years now, and they are based in the Riverina. So, to talk to us about better beef marketing, I'd like to introduce Alison Hamilton. So Alison, let me just pull you up on the screen here. Can you hear us there, Alison?
I can.
Oh, great. We can see your screen. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to leave you in the good hands of Alison Hamilton and enjoy the webinar. Thank you very much.
Well, good evening, and thank you very much for that introduction. It's a pleasure to be here to talk to you all this evening. And as my topic says, I'm going to talk about better beef marketing, which is a topic that I have been working in for some time now. And I guess you'll hear about the capacity that I operate in as we go through this evening. But I guess this evening what I want to encourage you to look at is your marketing processes and practices in a new light. I want to encourage you to explore and possibly seek these new opportunities without fear. As we know, beef prices at the moment are good, but I feel that we can become complacent and we operate in a volatile, fluctuating market with so many variables. I'm not telling you anything you don't know there. The weather, the dollar, and not to mention the ever-changing consumer trends and demands. We also need to remember that as Australian beef producers, about 75% of our product is destined for an overseas market. So we need to bear in mind that we operate in a very global industry. So in bearing all of that in mind, tonight I'm going to talk about the principles of marketing, how you can plan and assess the viability of new market opportunities for your business. I'll talk about some of the basic tools to help you with this, and I'm also going to give an overview of just some of the many market opportunities available and some of the key elements that you need to adhere to gain access and make the opportunity work for you. I'm also hopefully going to give you some thoughts on how you can easily comply with the parameters of these market opportunities. I'm going to do this by giving a couple of examples of producers that I've worked with to help gain a market opportunity, and I'll demonstrate what this has then meant for their businesses. I'll go to the next slide here. Okay, so first I think it's important that we refresh our understanding of marketing, and I think this phrase actually sums it up quite nicely. To me, marketing is getting the right product or service in the right quantity, to the right place, at the right time, and obviously making a profit in the process. So when we talk about right product, it's about knowing what your market wants, really understanding those market specifications, how to meet them, what you're getting paid for at the end of the day. Right quantity, obviously different markets have different preferences for different quantities, and I'm sure we have producers of different scale listening in tonight. So this will be a case-by-case issue. Right place, where is your market? And I'm going to talk about location when I give some examples a little bit later, but you need to understand your proximity to markets. Right time, this is both right time for your production system to ensure that the quality, so again that right product is maintained, and the right time for the market. Again, this is about monitoring supply and demand. It's about understanding what markets are doing, and by following them closely, you're going to be in a far better position to achieve this. All of this is about having a plan to reach the market as effectively and efficiently as possible, as opposed to producing a product and then trying to find a market that wants it. This may work in your favour sometimes, but long term this is not viable. And obviously the last bit of this phrase, profit, is what we all need to do to stay sustainable. Profit is not about receiving the top sale price on the day of sale, but comes from understanding and managing your costs along the way. Understanding and monitoring your costs to ensure that continual efficiencies are being made. It's just good business practice. So I know I'm not telling you anything new there, but hopefully that's a bit of a refresher on the things that we need to think about when we think about our marketing plan. So successful marketing in my eyes also needs a good roadmap, a good plan. If you think about any brands and products that are successful out there, you are likely to find that the core of their success is that they are well planned and have a good roadmap. When I think about companies or brands that are good at marketing, one that always comes to mind is Coca-Cola. They're consistent with their product, they know what their consumer wants, and they have a process which gets the right product in the right quantity to the right place at the right time. Now I understand that the beef industry is up against many more variables than perhaps Coca-Cola is, which is why we also need to keep in mind and have up our sleeve that plan B or a contingency when things like season don't go in our favour. So hopefully that has set the scene for this evening's webinar in what is marketing and where we're heading tonight. The first thing I want to introduce you to, and for some of you this may not be new, but I think before you can move forward and seek new market opportunities, or before you can move forward in anything, it's really important that you get an understanding of your current situation. This slide is showing a simple tool that can be used to do this. You may have used it before. This is what we call a SWOT analysis, which is basically a planning tool used to assess your business or part of your business in light of your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. I'd encourage you all, if you're thinking about moving forward in any sphere of your business, and particularly in your marketing sphere after tonight's webinar, I'd encourage you to do a quick SWOT analysis with all the members of your business. I think this works really well on a whiteboard or butcher's paper. It gives a really balanced snapshot of your operation, and it's a great brainstorming exercise. So I've just given a couple of examples under each heading here. Ideally, you would list as much as you can to give a real picture of your current situation. But let's just go through what I have up in front of us at the moment. So under the heading of strengths, to me, production data is a huge strength to any business. Too often, we assess animals subjectively rather than objectively. We make estimates and we treat animals as a group rather than individually. This often means we have animals fall out of specification, which affects our bottom line and the relationship we have with our market. So better records, electronic records, and individual animal records can allow us to take that guesswork out of the decision making and make more informed and timely decisions, both about the management and the marketing of our animals. Many of the market programs that I'm going to touch on tonight need us to verify what, how, and when we do things on farm and with our stock. So good records will make it easier for you to comply with these requirements. So if you have good electronic records, this would be a great strength. If not, and you're perhaps thinking about that, perhaps this is something that you would put under the weakness or perhaps opportunity box of your SWOT analysis. Under the heading of weakness, I have listed relying on one market. In my eyes, this could be risky and therefore classified as a weakness. It may not be in your situation. Other examples of weaknesses may be things like labour availability, your location, perhaps your pastures aren't up to scratch, or your breeding herd needs some work. A SWOT analysis is going to be a very individual and unique thing to your business. Under the third heading of opportunities, I think this is the really exciting box that we need to capitalise on. And these are the things we can do to improve our business and its sustainability. And tonight I'm particularly talking about the opportunity that exists with new market opportunities. Under the fourth quadrant of this box, under the heading of threats, are the things that are often out of our control, but we need to acknowledge and identify them so we can put processes in place to better manage the risk associated with these things. And as I have listed there, things like season, the Australian dollar, consumer trends are things that are fairly out of our reach, but we can have practices and processes in place to better manage the impact of them on our business. So once you've completed a fairly thorough SWOT analysis, you need to use this information to form your roadmap. The aim of the game is then to build on your strengths, eliminate or better manage those weaknesses, explore and or capitalise on the opportunities, and better manage the risk associated with the threats. Once you've done that, I think you're ready to move forward and start to seek new opportunities. So that's exactly what I want to talk about tonight. What are the new market opportunities in the beef industry? This slide is just depicting as a snapshot some of the many and new market programs that are available in the beef industry. This is by no means inclusive, but let's face it, a piece of beef nowadays is not just a piece of beef. All of these images or brands tell a story, and in some way they connect to the consumer. You would know yourself that there are certain brands that you trust and rely on, which are often the staples in your shopping trolley, and that's what these brands are also all about. So in recent times we've seen, and I think we'll continue to see, new market opportunities that emerge in our industry. We don't have time to talk about the detail of all of these programs, and I certainly don't know the detail of all of these programs. And depending on your location and your production system, along with many other factors, will depend on your ability and capacity to provide to some of these markets. I will, however, give some examples of what these programs have meant to a couple of my clients and producers that I've worked with over the past few years. So you might ask why. As we know, beef prices are pretty good at the moment, so why do I need to take this extra step? Why do I need to get involved in these extra markets? In my mind, now is the ideal time to do this. It's even more of a reason to look into these opportunities. Because when things do, and let's face it, I hope they don't, get tough again, if things do, you need to be on the front foot, not looking for things, once it's too late, once you're on the back foot. And for some of these programs, gaining access can take some time. So although all of these programs have different set of criteria and values, there's a common theme. And that is that all consumers want us to be able to verify where and how our product is produced. Consumers want to have that connection with the food they consume. Unfortunately, your word is no longer adequate, but many of these programs will require records to back up what you do and how you do it. And many of these programs are also auditable. Importantly though, and as I will refer to shortly, many of these programs obviously offer a better market price so if you can achieve the criteria, and that's what it's all about. We want a better price for your product. So now I just want to touch on a couple of these. First one I want to start fairly basic with Meat Standards Australia, one that many of you may already be involved in. It's our paddock to plate eating quality grading program. And as I said, it's a requirement for many of these other market opportunities. So if you're not already involved in any of the other opportunities, perhaps registering to become an MSA producer is a good place to start. Again, if it works for you. You need to think about your system, your location, etc. The MSA program requires a minimum set of standards to be met. So carcasses are graded at MSA accredited abattoirs with information such as carcass weight, sex, tropical breed content, hanging method, ossification, marbling, rib fat depth, meat pH temperature and colour, eye muscle area and fat colour. Registering for MSA is free of charge, so it's a good one to get on board with. You simply need to log on to the MLA website, complete online training and exam and registration form. And it'll be the first step in perhaps your ability to access new market opportunities. The next market opportunity that I want to talk about is UCAS, EU market. The EU provides a high value market for Australia, and I guess the situation in the EU at the moment is that cattle production is declining. However, the good thing is that beef consumption is increasing. So this opportunity has potential to continue to grow, and if we look at the numbers from the past few years, it certainly indicates the growth in this market. All product going to the EU must have been supplied through an EU accredited supply chain, which can include producers, feedlots, sale yards and abattoirs. Our main competitors to this market include Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina and the US. However, with EU consumers becoming more aware of the products they consume, they really want to be assured that the beef they eat is safe, raised with high levels of animal welfare and sustainability, and that they have a good and consistent eating quality each and every time that they choose our product. So I think these factors alone put us in a really good position for growth to this market. What does this mean for you? And I guess I've put this graph up on the slide in front of you to indicate some of the price premiums that can be gained by accessing some of these new market opportunities. The graph in front shows the comparative of EU steer price when compared to the medium steer and heavy steer prices as reported by MLA's National Livestock Reporting Service since July of 2004 through to March of this year. And I can tell you that consistently it's has been recently about 33 cents above that of the medium and heavy steer. But you can see the orange line there is fairly consistently above other prices. So why wouldn't you? What are the things that are stopping you from perhaps signing up and becoming involved in one of these, or in this market opportunity in particular? Perhaps it's the requirements. So to become an EU producer, to sign up for this market opportunity, it's free to sign up again, no cost to you. It requires that you don't use hormone growth promotants, so it's a hormone growth promoting free market. The other factor is that you need to have full traceability on the NLIS database of all of your animals. All animals must be lifetime traceable on the NLIS database, and you need to conduct an annual NLIS database reconciliation. It might be those last factors there that have scared you off perhaps signing up or taking the opportunity to become involved in UCAS. But don't fear, I'm going to give you some examples of some producers who have tackled that fear and what it's meant for them, and hopefully you can also see a way forward to overcome some of those issues. The next market opportunity that I want to give an overview of is PCAS, or the Pasture-Fed program. Relatively new program, developed by Cattle Council of Australia. Product is processed by teas. It's been reported up to about 80 cents a kilogram premium above straight yearling price. That may not be the case at the moment, but that's what can happen. And as it indicates, this program, which you probably have heard of, verifies that your production system is pasture-fed. Consumers are increasingly, as I've said, with all of these programs, wanting the proof and the story behind how their product was produced, and this program does exactly that. One of the key requirements for PCAS, though, is good record-keeping systems are in place, and that cattle can be traced from birth to slaughter. So again, it refers back to our record-keeping system as a strength. It would be a real strength if you were looking at becoming involved in this program. So the 6 elements include, again, ID or lifetime traceability on the NLIS database is something this market wants. No confined production feeding. Again, as it says, it's lifetime pasture-fed. You need to be assigned up for MSA, so minimum eating quality standards, and product needs to come from an MSA accredited property. And product to this market needs to be HGP and antibiotic free. To sign up, you need to register on the PCAS website. There is a cost associated with this program, an annual admin fee, and there is an audit associated with it as well of your on-farm records. So again, the stumbling blocks there, as you're thinking about some of these things, may be the lifetime traceable and your NLIS database, or it may be the records and the auditable records. The next opportunity that I want to touch on is also a relatively new program, Great Southern. It was launched in January of 2014 by JBS. It's underpinned by their JPS Farm Assurance Program. It's 100% grass-fed, although I do believe there's other modules on now. And again, this program is about a product that is fresh, wholesome, safe, and has been produced under high animal welfare requirements. So again, it's justifying and it's really verifying those things that our consumers want. It's giving the backup. Unlike your word of mouth, we know how we produce animals. It's giving that variability to back up what we actually do on farm. Again, there's no grain or grain products, no HGPs or GMOs, no antibiotics. And the minimum is that you need to meet the farm assurance standards of the JBS Farm Assurance Program. For this program, you would sign up by contacting your local buyer. So that's just a snapshot of a couple of market opportunities, new programs, some of you may or may not be involved in. But now I want to give some examples of what that means in practice. It's all good and well for me to sit here and tell you about these. You can read it on the internet, read it in the media. But I guess what really matters is what it means in practice. So as I said, I've got a couple of case studies here of producers that I have worked with in the past few years and how they've accessed a market opportunity and what it's meant for them. So in the introduction, David said, I have been involved with the National Livestock Identification System basically since its inception. So I have a strong background with NLIS and the database. So I guess producers have come to me, particularly with that stumbling block in market access and gaining these opportunities in understanding their database and ensuring that it's up to scratch and everything's in order to help gain that access to these markets. So this client is based in the Southern Tablelands. I'm going to leave my clients anonymous, but I'm going to give their scenario. He's based in the Southern Tablelands of New South Wales. This particular client has been EU accredited now for 3 years. They're a commercial, self-replacing operation running about 150 shorthorn breeders. They also run sheep as a second enterprise. When I asked this client what becoming EU has given them, the things that they told me were particularly sale flexibility. Over the past 3 years, they've had the joy of receiving about a 15 to 20 cent premium above what they would have got in previous years, and a better ability to sell both their steer and heifer progeny. So this client is selling progeny to Wombi Feedlot at Inverell. Now you may say transport from the Southern Tablelands to Inverell is a fair hike, and that was my question to them as well. However, in some calculations, they've worked out that transport does cost about $30 to $35 extra per head for transport than if they were to find a local or a market a bit closer to home. But they've reported successfully over the last 3 years that even though paying that extra, they're still ahead of the game and financially better off by supplying to this EU market at Wombi Feedlot. So this client came to me 3 years ago with their NLIS database in a bit of a mess. Tough seasonal conditions had meant that cattle had been on and off agistment over some time. So their NLIS database and animals were not fully traceable. But we managed to work through this by paper trail and fixing up things that perhaps hadn't been done. And now they're enjoying the benefits of this. The other requirement of becoming EU is for an annual audit. So we have to tidy up the database and ensure it matches with what's on your property every year. This producer has indicated to me that it's simply now part of their management practice. So every year at preg testing time, they simply get out their NLIS reader, read every animal on the farm, and we run our reconciliation report against the NLIS database. It's basically second nature now, and I think they'd say, why didn't I do this earlier? And again, to them, the main reason they didn't tackle this earlier was the NLIS database and getting their head around that. But now, as I said, it's part of everyday life. So our second client that I'd like to talk about, this client has 2 properties. Again, they're actually also based towards the Southern Tablelands. They run about 600 Angus females. Primary market has been both steers and heifers to the feedlot market. Since gaining EU accreditation a couple of years ago, they're primarily selling to Kalara Feedlot. And again, they've indicated that transport to this market, although a fair hike, is certainly outweighed by the premium that can be enjoyed. This client has also sold EU stock, so replacement breeders on Auctions Plus, and they've found great success in that. So they've found an increased competition for their cattle, which obviously equates to a better price outcome. So you need to think about, I think, that secondary opportunity with markets such as EU. Being a closed herd, it's hard to build up numbers and gain, and particularly your female numbers. So purchasing from other EU producers is the only way. So it's an additional market opportunity if the situation is right. So again, I asked this producer, what has becoming EU given to you? And their top 3 responses were, number 1, it was market security and always having a market to provide. The second thing that they indicated that, that has come from this is improved herd records. So they've said becoming EU has really sharpened their herd recording practices. Employees have had to take new responsibilities in this area, and this has been a good thing for their overall business. They're now more accountable, and I guess adding up the numbers and being accountable for the movements of animals is just part of daily practice now. It's keeping them accountable for what they're doing. And the third thing that this producer said was that it gave a wider range of market options, enabling them to shop around for the best price at that time. Okay. So just in summary then, this slide is really just to depict the story of transport and location. It's a simple slide, but one message. Obviously, before you get too far down the track of signing up for a market opportunity, you need to have a good understanding of your proximity. So in summary, the common theme with all of these markets is accountability. Our consumers want verification of what we do on farm, how we do it. This comes from good records. Obviously, electronic records are the best way to do this, but not essential. They want to know our product is safe. Our LPA QA system underpins this, and NLIS is the third element of traceability, which is also what they want. As I've said, I find that many people will file a market opportunity in the too hard basket for two reasons. Their records are perhaps not up to scratch and an audit seems awfully scary, or their NLIS database is a daunting thing to tackle. So you need to remember that some of these programs will be auditable and go back to your SWOT analysis to really encapsulate these three elements: good records, QA and traceability. So in conclusion, your call to action, I encourage you after today to really go out and develop a relationship with your buyer. Develop a relationship with your market. Make sure it's a two-way relationship. Always seek the feedback from your market. Number two, explore new market opportunities. Let's try not to have all your eggs in one basket. Perhaps, as it says there, registering for MSA is your first step in this. And your third call to action is about your record keeping system. As we have said, your word is no longer good enough, unfortunately. We need to verify what we do and how we do it. Our consumers want this security and connection to their product. Also, as indicated, many of these market opportunities are auditable, so your records will be checked. So perhaps it's time to look at how you do this and take the first step at improving the efficiency of your record keeping system. So good luck. The beef industry is an exciting place to be right now. It's said that we are the next big industry, so I hope that I've left you with just a few things to think about to ensure you can be a part of it. And I'd now like to take any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you, Alison. It's David back with you now. Thank you for a very concise and informative presentation. Alison's going to stay on the line for as long as we need now to answer any questions that you may have. If you have a question that you'd like to ask and you haven't written it into the question pane, I encourage you to do that now. Again, thanks for participating in the webinar. Obviously, you're welcome to sign off now if you wish. It's 8 o'clock, and thank you, Alison, for finishing so timely. If you do sign off now, please take 2 minutes to complete the post-webinar survey. It will pop up on your screen when you close the webinar window. The information is important to us and we appreciate you in doing so. We have an additional webinar, or we don't have any additional webinars planned just at the moment, but please do keep an eye on your inbox and on the MLA media, because we're hoping to develop some webinars in the near future and get them out there and get people online again. So that's great. We can see some questions coming through there now. Alison, I might just read them out to you, and if you want to take a moment to answer them, then you're more than welcome. Okay. So the first question is from Joe Lane. Joe asks, or maybe more of a comment actually, accessing beef markets, not feedlots, means a relationship with processors. What is your experience? So that's the question. Accessing beef markets, not feedlots, means a relationship with processors. What's your experience?
Okay, thanks for that comment, Joe. I guess accessing feedback is more so, my experience is that it's more than about the data. It's about actually communicating and talking to your feedback, or talking to your buyer, I mean. It's not necessarily just about the data. So from a feedlot perspective, I guess it's just having that relationship, being able to call them up and say, how are my cattle performing, you know, what's happening. The other thing I'd say to that is a lot of people don't realise that you can actually gain feedback via the NLIS database. So it's limited, I know, it's not the most inclusive feedback, but if perhaps you're the middleman, you're not the direct seller of livestock, so your animals have gone through a feedlot to a processor, and this is if I'm interpreting your question correctly, you often miss out on the feedback. So other ways of getting that are, I guess, one is to develop that verbal relationship. The other one is if you know that your animals are going in for a certain amount of days on feed, roughly, there is a way you can then log on to the NLIS database if you were the breeder of those animals and gain some carcass feedback via the NLIS database. I hope I have interpreted your question correctly there, Joe. I'm guessing it's being the middleman and perhaps missing out if you're not going direct to the processor.
Great.
And I guess, yeah, they're my two things.
Oh, great. Thanks, Alison. So Rodney Royds has asked a question for you. He asks, where can I get a list of feedlots and abattoirs and their locations?
Good. Well, particularly in relation to the EU market, the DAF website, so I forgot to mention that Department of Agriculture administer the EU program, and on their website they have a list of all accredited feedlots, abattoirs and processors for that market. Or you have trouble, I can always flick them through to you.
Great, thanks, Alison. Alison, Alan McCullen's got a question for you. He asks, how do you know what market opportunities are available?
Good question, and I guess as we said earlier that you know, these market opportunities are really emerging now, and you know, we used to sell primarily under traditional means, and there wasn't a lot of branding of our piece of beef. We didn't really have the background to it. How do we find out about these opportunities? I guess from my perspective, it's about staying in touch with your industry, joining things like this webinar, again, talking to your agents and buyers. They will know about the opportunities that are available and perhaps be able to help talk you through you know, some of the opportunities in your particular area.
Great, thanks, Alison. Alan's got another question here for you. He wants to know, are there software programs available to help with data recording?
Yes, Alan, and I guess that's a topic I could talk on all night, so I'll try not to get carried away, but electronic data capture, there are a number of systems and programs out there, anything from an app that you can use on your telephone or your iPad or anything like that, through to computer-based programs. There's simple systems through to more advanced systems. I guess the systems that I try to help people set up encapsulate obviously NLIS readers. I think individual ID is a big part of data recording. Scales are not just scales anymore. They don't just weigh animals, but they're basically like mini laptops, and you can actually download them and use programs such as Excel. And then on top of that, you have got software programs, and there's a multitude out there for you to choose from. It's a case-by-case scenario, I guess, as to what you'd require.
Great, thanks, Alison. Alison, Joe asked the first question about accessing beef markets and not feedlots and having a relationship with processors. Joe's asked another question here. He asks what he meant is accessing export markets for beef, For this, you need a processor in the loop. Can this be a shared responsibility?
Yeah. I'm not sure that I'm in a position to answer that one, Joe. I guess it can, but I think it's an industry thing. I guess accessing export markets, there's a lot more to it than, you know, as individuals, obviously we can't. I think I'm interpreting your question correctly. Would be my opinion.
Okay, thanks, Alison. It may be an opportunity for Joe to be in touch with you afterwards if you'd like
Yeah,
to clarify the
please phone
question.
or email me, Joe. I'm not sure I'm understanding correctly.
Alison, Mike Funnel has asked a question of you. What's the best way to clear a messy NLIS database after 3 years of cattle on agistment?
Okay, the best way is, unfortunately, we need to do a reconciliation, and that requires getting a reader, reading absolutely every animal on your property, and then basically running that reconciliation with what the database says that you've got. There's a function on the NLIS database that allows you to do that, but yeah, the first step is actually reading everything so you know what you've got, and then from there it's a matter of working through and tidying it up. And I guess there's reports that can be run on the database, and it's a matter of really knowing the system. I think that's where I've come in and helped a lot of people, because it can be quite daunting if, you know, on farm you've only got 200 animals and perhaps you've got 50 spare tags in the cupboard, but your database account says other things, and or agistment with animals moving regularly, that may also be an issue. And as we know, NLIS was introduced a phased-in system, so there was a period of time where we had to tag animals, but we didn't necessarily have to move them. And although many of them may have slipped off the system now, there may still be tags that are long gone, but perhaps they're still sitting on your database. So many people get quite a shock when they look at their NLIS database account, and they have far greater numbers on there than they know they have animals running around the paddock. So hopefully that answered your question, Mike.
Thank you, Alison.
In a nutshell, quickly.
Thank you, thank you. Alison, Darcy Duggan asks of you, do you have any thoughts on the Wagyu market? The prices being received on Auctions Plus for very light, unjoined heifers, 200 kilogram yearlings for over 600 cents a kilogram, might suggest that people are getting carried away. What are your thoughts?
Well, what are my thoughts? The market is a fluctuating market, and I guess it's all about supply and demand. We have little control over those prices. My specific comments are that I think, you know, the Wagyu industry is one that's taking off, and it certainly has a place in our market. I think you know, there's a lot of people doing great things there, but I guess the prices are really dictated by supply and demand at the time, and many will experience their ups and their downs. I'm not sure that I can comment too much more on that one.
Thanks, Alison. Graham Higham asks of you, with the pasture fed requirement for some marketing programs, can that include supplementary feeds such as hay that's been bought off the property when the season's dry or over the winter period?
Look, for PCAS, you're best to go to the PCAS website to get all of their regulations. There's quite a fine-tooth comb of all of the requirements for the system. Yes, some feedstuffs are allowed, but I wouldn't want to give a yes or no explicit answer to you, because it depends on what level of and depends on the feed stuff that you're feeding. There is actually a list on the cans and the can'ts. So I'd encourage you, it's a fairly inclusive, have a good sift through if you were thinking about accessing that market, because here to it, then it can be a fairly costly one to get involved with if requirements.
Great, Alison, thank you. Graham, I appreciate that. Alison just cut off there for a second. I hope you got the answer to that. If you haven't, please just give Alison a call or flick her an email. Alison, Brett Hall's asked the question of you. Thanks, Alison. Top presentation. He says, breeders who sell store calves at weaner sales do not get any feedback from the finishers. Do you have any suggestions on how to improve this?
Good question, and that is, I guess, a problem. Again, though, if you know, I guess, where your animals might be going, and obviously if they're going to a background or the end of feedlot, you may lose track of them down the process. But I think, you know, one way is through the feedback of the NLIS database. But look, I really strongly believe in people developing a relationship with no matter who their buyer is. I think, you know, communication, we can all learn from each other, and as I said, the data is one thing, but you know, how animals perform and you know, there's other factors that you can learn from just talking to people. But that is a loophole, Brett. I appreciate that. I haven't actually got the answer right here tonight, but I think it's important that we perhaps work on a system and a way that that those people can gain feedback, because it's really valuable. Any feedback is really valuable to help us you know, make sure that we're progressing forward in our operations.
Great, thanks Alison. Thank you very much. So just for the moment, that seems to be the last question. Undoubtedly there might be another one come through. Alison, while we're waiting for any more questions to come through, I'd just like to thank you very much for a great presentation. Alison Hamilton of AJM Livestock Solutions. She'll be more than happy to talk to anyone participating in this webinar at a later date if needed. I'd like to thank everyone here for attending today's webinar. If you have any further queries about the More Beef from Pastures program, please just contact Home Sackett, who are the New South Wales State Coordinators. Again, please take a few minutes to complete the post-webinar survey. If it fails to pop up on your screen after the webinar shuts, I will send it to you in a follow-up email within 24 hours. And you'll also have a link to view today's webinar. So Alison, it appears that that's the end of the questions. So thank you again. And on behalf of More Beef from Pastures and all of our presenters, thank you everyone for attending today, and have a great evening.